Declan Ward saw the most beautiful woman on that train platform, and his heart just sank. He thought there must be some mistake. This could not be his bride. A woman who looked like that did not come to Montana to marry a broken man, but she walked straight toward him with her chin held high and said four simple words: "You must be Declan." He had sent for a bride out of pure desperation, expecting someone plain. Instead, fate sent him Amelia Cross, a woman so lovely she could have been a star from the night sky. Now, if you are watching this story from somewhere out there in the world, I would love to hear from you. Drop your city in the comments below and stick with me to the very end. Because what happens between these two is a story you will not soon forget. That November wind cut across the Birch Creek station like a brand new knife. Declan shifted his weight from one boot to the other, his hands buried deep in his pockets. He had that certain look of a man who was about to do something he was not entirely sure of. He was 34 years old, but the Montana Territory had a way of adding years to a man. His face was lined from the sun and wind, and his dark hair was starting to show some silver. His gray eyes held a quietness that comes from spending too much time alone with your own thoughts. He was a tall, broad-shouldered man, but he carried himself with a heavy weariness. He looked like a man who had long ago stopped expecting anything good to come his way. As the stage from Helena ran late, he found himself hoping it might not arrive at all. What kind of man was he to basically buy a wife from a newspaper ad? The whole idea felt wrong and desperate, but his ranch needed a woman's hand. That was the simple truth. It had been 5 long years since his mother passed, and 3 since he buried his younger brother. Since then, Declan had been running the Ward Ranch all by his lonesome. He had 300 acres of fine land and a growing herd of cattle, but none of it meant a thing when you came home to a cold, empty cabin every single night. The silence in that place was so thick you could feel it pressing down on you. The few women in Birch Creek were already spoken for, or they had made it clear. To them, Declan Ward was just not the marrying type. They said he was too quiet, too set in his ways, and haunted by ghosts from the war. They were not wrong. So with another lonely winter on its way, Declan finally did what he swore he never would. He wrote a short, honest letter to the Matrimonial News asking for a wife. His ad was blunt. A rancher, age 34, he needed a hardy woman who could handle isolation. He chose his words with care. Practical, willing to work. He hoped for a sensible widow, maybe. Someone who knew this life was about partnership. 3 letters came back in reply. The first was from a delicate soul. He burned it. The second was too businesslike even for him. But the third was from Amelia Cross of Boston. Her letter was direct, honest, and a little desperate. "I am 26 years old and need a new start. I grew up on a horse farm and no hard work. I don't need romance, just an honest place. A place where my past cannot follow me. I am healthy, keep my word, and do not complain." That honest letter was the one that convinced him. He sent the travel money without a second thought. It was a practical deal, he told himself over and over. But for 8 weeks, he found himself tidying up the place. He cleaned the cabin and even fixed the porch step. Now, hearing the stage, his stomach twisted into a knot. What if she sees this dusty place and just leaves? What if this whole plan was a fool's errand? The stagecoach appeared, kicking up a trail of dust. John Hutchkins was at the reins, bundled against the cold. He pulled the team to a halt with an expert hand. "Afternoon, Declan," John called down, his breath a white puff. His voice held a knowing tone. Small towns talk. Declan just nodded, his eyes glued to the stagecoach door. Tom Porter climbed down and opened it for the passengers. First, Ezra Johnson got off the stagecoach with his supplies from Helena. Then came the banker's wife, Mrs. Whitmore, already fussing about the roads. And then she stepped down. That woman wasn't who Declan expected at all. Not even close to what he'd pictured during 8 weeks of waiting. She was, to put it simply, beautiful. Not just pretty, but truly beautiful. The kind of beautiful that makes a man's heart skip a beat. She stood tall for a woman, about 5'7", with a fine shape. Her hair under her bonnet was a rich auburn that glowed in the sun. But it was her face that truly stopped him. Elegant, with high cheekbones. She had a mouth that looked like it was made for smiling, though it was serious now. And her eyes, a striking green, were smart and took in everything. This can't be her. This couldn't be the practical woman who wrote about horse farms. Women who looked like this didn't answer ads from ranchers they'd never met, and they surely did not agree to marry a man like Declan Ward. But she was walking right in toward him, her bag in hand, looking composed. "Mr. Ward?" Her voice was clear, with a crisp, educated sound from back east. None of this made a lick of sense. Declan remembered to pull off his hat. "Yes, ma'am, I'm Declan Ward." Amelia Cross. She didn't offer her hand, which saved them both some awkwardness. "I hope you received my telegram from Helena." He had, 2 days prior. "I did. Yes." They just stood there for a moment with the wind blowing around them. Declan's mind was spinning. There had to have been a mistake. A woman like this couldn't possibly be for him. He had to say something. He ought to offer her a ticket right back home, let her out of this gracefully. But before he could, Amelia Cross asked, "Is something the matter, Mr. Ward?" He hesitated. "Miss Cross, I reckon there's been some confusion. You were not expecting me?" Her eyes were steady on his, not hurt, just understanding. "You were expecting someone plainer, maybe older, someone who looked more suited for this life." "No, I didn't mean," he started, but she spoke over him. "It is perfectly understandable." She looked around at the rough little station. "I imagine I am not what you advertised for. But I assure you, Mr. Ward, I am who I said I was. I can work, and I will. All this way to turn back now." Her voice wasn't desperate, but it was mighty close. She had a look that said whatever she left in Boston was worse than anything out here in Montana. "Ma'am, I just need to be sure I know what I'm getting into." She just tilted her head. "Mr. Ward, I've been on trains for 3 days and that awful stagecoach for 2 more. I haven't seen a proper bed in nearly a week. I've got dust in places I never knew existed, and I'm sure I smell of horses in travel. What I need right now is not for you to worry. What I need is for you to tell me if the deal we made in our letters is still on. Or do you plan to send me home because I don't look beat down enough for you?" In spite of himself, Declan felt a small smile forming. This woman had some real grit under all that refinement. "The deal stands, if you still want it." "I do, even if the ranch isn't what I expect." "It's not," he paused. "It's not fancy, Miss Cross. It's a working ranch 30 miles from town. The cabin is decent, but it's small. The work is hard, and Montana winters are a whole different beast than Boston. I don't need fancy, Mr. Ward." She looked him square in the eye. "I need honest work and a fresh start. That's what you offered. So unless you're taking back your offer—" "No, ma'am, I'm not." "Then can we please get going? It's cold out here, and I'm pretty sure I saw snow clouds coming over the mountains on the ride in." Declan nodded and pointed to his wagon waiting nearby. "This way." He grabbed her trunk from Tom Porter, ignoring the old man's smirk, and tossed it in the back. Amelia climbed right up on the seat without any help, fixing her skirts like she'd done it 100 times. Declan sat beside her and took the reins of his horses, Ned and Sadie, who'd been napping while they waited. As they left the station, Declan saw folks peeking out their windows. He knew Mrs. Whitmore was already headed for the general store to spread the news. By supper time, all of Birch Creek would know Declan Ward's mail-order bride had arrived, and she wasn't at all what they pictured. They rode without a word for the first mile on the bumpy road leading out to the Ward Ranch. The sun was getting low, making long shadows stretch across the valley. The land out here was beautiful in a rugged kind of way. Rolling fields, pine trees, and little creeks cutting through the land, with those mountains always in the distance, their tops already white with snow. Finally, Amelia spoke up. "How long have you had this ranch?" "It was my father's," Declan answered, watching the road. "He started it back in 1867 after the war. Built it up for 8 years till his heart gave out. My mother and I held on after that. She passed in 70. My brother Thomas died 3 years back. So I guess it's been all mine for about 3 years, but I've been working it since I was 17. "You were in the war?" "Yes, ma'am." His tone made it plain that was all he would say on the matter. After a moment, Amelia began to speak. My daddy raised and trained horses, mostly Morgans. Our family farm went back 3 generations. I grew up on his horses, so I know the work well. What happened to the farm? Declan asked. Her hands tightened on her little purse. My father passed away 2 years ago. The doctor called it heart failure, but I reckon he just worked himself out. He was 63 and the farm was mortgaged to the hilt. He'd borrowed money to expand. When he died, the debts came due. My brother inherited the place, but not the sense to run it. He sold it inside of 6 months to pay off the bank. Declan asked, "And what about you?" I went to live with my aunt in Boston. She's a well-off widow, Amelia said, her voice flat. She also had some mighty specific ideas about my future. Declan glanced at her, reading between the lines. She wanted you to marry, he guessed. She wanted me to marry well, Amelia corrected him. A man with money and a good name, who could overlook that my family actually worked for a living. A bitter edge crept into her voice. My aunt introduced me to several men over 18 months. They were all proper and polite, and I couldn't stand a single one of them. The last one, a banker named Worthington, wanted a wife who was just a pretty decoration. Someone to have his children and never have an opinion. Declan asked, "And you said no?" I said no, and I wasn't quiet about it. My aunt was furious. She called me ungrateful. She said at 26 years old, I had no business being so picky. If I wouldn't marry her choice, I could make my own way. She gave me 1 month. So you answered my advertisement, he finished for her. Yours was the most honest I saw. You didn't promise romance, just a working arrangement for 2 people who needed something. That honesty meant more to me than a bunch of flowery words. Declan took that in. He was starting to understand why a woman like Amelia would make such a choice. She was running away from her past, just like he had been for years. They were both just looking for some solid ground to stand on. I meant what I said too, he told her, about the hard work and the loneliness. We're a full 30 miles from Birch Creek. And that's a town of maybe 50 people. In winter, heavy snow can keep us here for weeks. This ranch is 300 acres. And right now, it's just me. I have about 100 cattle and a dozen horses. I also keep some chickens, a few pigs, and a milk cow. The garden plot has been let go. The cabin has 4 rooms, and that's the whole of it. She smiled faintly. It sounds perfect. Amelia spoke softly, and when he looked over, she gave him a real, honest-to-goodness smile. No more fancy parties or silly gossip, she said. Just hard work and open sky. You cannot imagine how good that sounds after being cooped up in a Boston parlor for 2 years, Mr. Ward. Hearing her say that, something in Declan's chest started to loosen up a bit. He figured this might not be a disaster after all. There is one thing we should discuss, Amelia said, her voice turning all business, the terms of this arrangement. I thought we were clear. You help with the ranch, I give you a home, and we get married, she cut in. Yes, but I reckon you would prefer to wait on the marrying part until we know if we can stand each other. Would a month be enough time? Declan just blinked. He truly had not thought that far ahead. The whole idea was still strange. That sounds fair enough. Good. And there is a place I can sleep separately? The storage room. I will sleep there. You take the bedroom. That is not necessary, Miss Cross. You traveled for 5 days. You will take the bedroom. I have slept in far worse places, I promise you. She studied him for a second, then gave a nod. All right then. Thank you. They rode over a rise, and he saw his ranch below. Tucked in a valley where a creek ran through the cottonwoods, there it was. The Ward Ranch. The log cabin was solid with a stone chimney and a long covered porch out front. Behind it was the barn, bigger than the cabin, along with a smokehouse and a chicken coop. Horses with their shaggy winter coats stood in the corrals, and cattle dotted the grass in the distance. It was not a grand place, Declan knew. It would never make him a wealthy man. But his father built it, and he kept it running. He felt a powerful pride for this place. Oh, Amelia breathed out. Mr. Ward, it is just beautiful. He shot her a surprised look. She was leaning forward, her eyes taking in the whole property with a look of pure delight. The mountains behind the ranch, she said. And the creek. Does it have good water all year? Yes, ma'am, it has never run dry. And are those your breeding horses in that corral? Some of them are. The best stock is in the barn. I have a mare who is due to foal any day now. May I please see her, if it is no trouble? I have done nothing but sit for 5 days, Mr. Ward. I would very much like to move my legs and see your horses. Well, how could a man refuse that? Declan drove the wagon down to the cabin and helped Amelia down. She took his hand this time. He led her to the barn as his horses nickered hello. The barn was dim and warm, smelling of hay and leather. Those smells had always meant home to Declan. He lit a lantern and led her down the center aisle. They walked past the dozing horses to the large stall at the very end, where his prize mare, Juniper, stood waiting. "This here's Juniper," he said, opening the stall. "She's my best breeding mare, 7 years old and built just right. Smart as a whip. This will be her third foal. The daddy is a Morgan stallion I brought down from Wyoming." But Amelia wasn't listening. She had already stepped right into the stall, moving with a quiet confidence that told you she knew horses. Juniper turned her head, curious instead of spooked. "Hello, pretty girl," Amelia said softly, holding out her hand for a sniff. The mare huffed on her palm, then let Amelia scratch her neck. "Oh, you are just lovely, and it's getting close now. Let's have a look." Before Declan could protest, Amelia was running her hands over Juniper's ears, checking the foal's position with an expert's touch. She knew exactly what she was doing. "She's dropped," Amelia announced. "Foal's in position. I'd say you've got 48 hours, maybe less. Has she started waxing up yet?" Declan just stared. "Some yesterday. Has she been restless? Lying down more than usual?" "She seemed a bit stirred up this morning. I've been checking on her." "Good." Amelia gave the mare a final pat and stepped out, her eyes shining. "She's in fine shape, Mr. Ward. You've taken real good care of her." "Have you ever helped with a foaling?" "Many times. I was 12 when I helped my father with the first one. By 16, he let me handle the easy births all by myself. I've probably been there for 50 foalings, maybe more." She smiled at his shocked face. "I told you I was raised on a horse farm. You didn't mention you grew up working it like a hired hand." "You didn't ask," she replied, dusting hay from her dress. "What time is evening feed?" "Around 5 o'clock. "Then let's get my things inside so I can change into something more sensible and give you a hand, unless you'd rather I stay out of your way." "No," Declan said, surprised at how fast he answered. "No, if you're willing to help, I'd be mighty grateful. It's good to have another pair of hands, especially if Juniper decides tonight is the night." They walked back to the cabin and Declan carried her big trunk inside while Amelia waited on the porch. The place was tidy, but simple. The main room had a table with 4 chairs, his mother's old settee, a rocking chair, and a stone fireplace. The kitchen was just a corner with a cast-iron stove and some shelves. 2 other doors led to the bedrooms. "It's not much," Declan started, but Amelia cut him right off. "It's clean, sturdy, and has a good stove, Mr. Ward. That is plenty. Now, which room is mine?" He pointed her to his own bedroom, which he had cleared out that morning. It just had a bed with a quilt, a dresser, and a chair. A small window looked out toward the creek. That was it. "I'll let you get settled," he said. "Take all the time you need. I'll get started on the evening chores." "Give me 10 minutes to change," Amelia said, "and I will be right out to join you." She was true to her word. Declan was just starting to muck out the stalls when Amelia walked into the barn, looking like a different woman. She had changed out of her fancy dress into a simple dark blue work dress. She had on a heavy apron. Her hair was pulled back in a braid, and she was holding a pair of work gloves. "Brought 'em from Boston," she said, seeing him look. "Figured that they might come in handy." "Putting you to work on your first day," Declan said. "That is not much of a Texas welcome." "It is exactly the welcome I need." Amelia grabbed a pitchfork. "Which stall do you want me to start with?" They worked quietly as the sun went down, falling into a steady rhythm without saying much. Amelia clearly knew her way around a barn. She moved around the horses with ease and wasted no motion. By the time they'd mucked the stalls, fed the stock, gathered eggs, and brought in firewood, it was pitch black outside. Declan found himself thinking this whole arrangement just might work out. Over a quiet supper of venison stew, bread and cheese, they talked. They went over the ranch schedule, how the chores were split, and what needed doing and when. They talked about what they had and what they'd need from town before winter set in hard. It was all business, but it felt right. I will ride into Birch Creek tomorrow, Declan told her. I will get supplies and let Reverend Mitchell know y'all are here. I figure he can come on out next week for the ceremony once you are all settled in. Amelia set her cup down. That is fine, but Mr. Ward, I need to be perfectly clear about something. I am not expecting anything more than what we agreed to. This is just a practical deal. You do not need to pretend otherwise. I understand that. Do you really? She looked him square in the eye. Because I saw how you looked at me when I got off that stage, like a man who'd been sold a show pony. When what he really needed was a workhorse. Declan felt his face get hot, because she was not wrong. I was not expecting someone like you. I know, but Mr. Ward, you need to understand. I did not come here because I had a line of better offers. This was my only real choice. I am not too good for this life, and I am certainly not too good for you. I am just a woman who needed to get away from a bad situation. I plan on earning my keep here through hard work, not by how I happen to look. Can you accept that? He just stared at this beautiful, determined woman. She spoke like someone who'd had to fight for her choices. Yes, I can accept that. Good, then we understand each other. She got up and started clearing the plates. I will clean up. You need to check on Juniper. I do. Then you should go. I will finish in here. It has been a very long day. Declan stood, but he hesitated. Miss Cross, for what it's worth, I'm glad you came. I think this will work. She gave him a small smile, and he saw that tough spirit again. I will make certain it does, Mr. Ward. Good night. Good night. He walked out into the cold dark, his breath making clouds as he headed for the barn. Juniper was pawing at the straw, her sides heaving with the foal she carried. It would be soon, he thought. Real soon. He thought, and real soon now. The cabin windows glowed warmly behind him. For the first time in 3 long years, someone else was in his house. Someone to share the work in the quiet days. It was a strange feeling, having a stranger here. It should have felt all wrong. But as Declan stood watching the cold darkness, he felt something he had not felt in a long, long time. He felt that maybe, just maybe, he was not so alone anymore. Then a horse's scream ripped Declan from his sleep around 2:30. He was on his feet and pulling on his boots before he was fully awake, grabbing his coat on the way out the door. The lamp in the main room was still burning low. He always kept one on during foaling season, and in its faint light he saw Amelia's door was wide open. She was already out there. He ran across the frosty yard to the barn, his breath puffing out in white clouds. Amelia was already inside with Juniper, wearing his spare coat over her nightgown. Her feet were lost in a pair of his boots, 3 sizes too big. The mare was down on her side, thrashing, her eyes wide with pain and fear. She's been pushing for 20 minutes, Amelia said, her voice sharp and focused. The foal is not presenting. I heard her from the house. We need more light in here, Mr. Ward, and we need it right now. Declan lit every single lantern, turning the stall as bright as midday. Amelia had her hands on Juniper's belly, feeling the mare, her face tight with concentration. The foal is positioned wrong, she said. I need to check her. I'll need some soap and clean rags from the tack room. He was back in 30 seconds with the supplies. Amelia was already rolling up her sleeves, her movements quick and sure. Though Declan could see her hands were trembling just a little, he could not tell if it was from the cold or the nerves. Hold her head, Amelia told him. Talk to her. Keep her steady for me. Declan knelt by Juniper's head, stroking her neck and speaking soft nonsense to her. He had learned over the years that it helped with scared animals. The mare's eye looked at him, and he saw trust mixed in with all that pain. She knew he was there to help. Amelia scrubbed her hands and arms raw, then gently began to examine the mare. Her face was a mask, her eyes far away as her hands worked by feel, reading a story she could not see. One leg is back, she said after a minute. The foal's coming out shoulder first with one leg folded. She did not have to say what would happen if she could not fix it. Declan knew. He had lost horses this way before. Can you fix it? He asked. I'm going to try, but you need to know, we could lose them both. The mare is getting worn out. He looked at her and said, Do what you need to do. Amelia gave him one firm nod, took a deep breath, and got right to work. What happened next was 45 minutes of the hardest, most careful work Declan had ever seen. Amelia was patient, her whole arm buried inside the laboring mare. Her face was a mask of pure effort as she felt for the foal's misplaced leg, trying to shift it. Sweat beaded on her brow in the November chill as she worked, her jaw set hard. Declan saw the muscles jumping in her cheek. She had to rest her arm twice, just to get the feeling back. Each time, her eyes apologized for the delay. "It is all right," he told her. "You are doing just fine." "I almost have it," she grunted the second time. "The leg keeps sliding back, but I can feel it." "There, I have got it. Come on now, sweetheart. Work with me, darling." She was cooing to the foal, or maybe to Juniper, her voice steady and soothing. Her arm must have been screaming, but she finally breathed. "That is it. Both legs are forward now. Mr. Ward, when she pushes again, we have to pull. Do you have the ropes?" "Right here." He had them ready. Together, they looped the soft ropes around the tiny legs. When Juniper strained, they pulled firm and steady, working with the mare's own rhythm. One pull, then two, then three, and suddenly the foal's head emerged, followed by its shoulders. Then, in a single rush, the whole foal slid free into the clean straw. It lay terribly still for a moment. Then Amelia was clearing its nose, rubbing it hard with a rag. The foal sputtered, coughed, and took its first real breath. It was a perfect little filly. Her coat was dark, but you could already see the rich chestnut color she got from her mama. "Oh, thank God," Amelia whispered, and only then did Declan see she was crying. Her hands trembled as she checked the foal for any problems, but her touch was gentle. Juniper, worn out but alive, lifted her head and nickered softly to her new baby. The foal answered with a tiny whinny that sounded impossibly big. "We did it," Declan said, his voice thick. "Amelia, you did it." She sat back on her heels, a tired smile on her face. Her nightgown was a mess, her face streaked with dirt and tears, but she just laughed. It was a sound of pure relief and joy, and it washed away all her careful composure. "She is perfect," Amelia said, still laughing through her tears. "Look, Mr. Ward, just perfect." They stayed there for the next hour, watching over the new mother and her baby. They watched the little filly struggle to her long, wobbly legs and find her first warm meal. By the time they finally left the barn, the eastern sky was already showing the first signs of dawn. Outside at the pump, Amelia's hands were too cramped and cold to work the handle. Declan took over, pumping the water while she scrubbed her hands and arms. Even in the dim light, he could see how badly her hands were shaking now that the danger had passed. "Get warm," he said. "I'll finish up." "I am all right." "Amelia." She looked up, surprised. "You've been out here for 3 hours, shaken like a leaf. Please go inside." A bad shiver made her nod. "All right, but I am checking on them in a few hours." "We both will," he promised. He watched her stumble off, something shifting in his chest. That woman who looked like she belonged in Boston had just saved his best mare and foal with pure courage. He was completely wrong about her. He watched her stumbling in his big boots and felt something turn over in his chest. Yesterday, she looked like a lady straight out of Boston, but tonight she was elbow deep saving his livestock. She had saved his best mare and her foal with pure grit and cried tears of relief when that little one breathed. She was nothing like he had expected. She was something else entirely. By the time Declan came inside 10 minutes later, Amelia was huddled by the fire, wrapped in a quilt. She poured him a cup of strong black coffee without asking. "Thank you," he said gratefully. "I should be thanking you," Amelia replied. "When you pulled with me, that made all the difference. You knew what to do. My father always said the best helpers know when to act and when to trust. You did both." She took a sip of her coffee. "I was terrified we were going to lose them. But we saved them," he said. "Mr. Ward," she began, "I need you to know I am not some fragile thing. I am good at this work, and I am not going anywhere." The pride in her voice made him wonder about Boston. "I was so scared we were going to lose them both. I have seen births go wrong like that before. But you did not lose them. You saved them." "We saved them," she corrected. "Mr. Ward, I need you to understand. I am a hard worker, just like I wrote in my letter. And you need to know I am not some fragile flower. I grew up doing this kind of work. I am good at it, and I am not going anywhere. Her voice was full of a fierce kind of pride. It was a need to prove herself, and it ran deep. Declan had to wonder what happened back in Boston. What did her aunt and those fancy men say to make Amelia feel like she had to fight so hard? I can see that, he said quietly, and I am glad. I think this can be a real partnership, if you are willing. Her green eyes studied him in the firelight. Are you? I saw your face yesterday. You thought I was a mistake. I thought you were too beautiful, he admitted. Too refined for a place like this, for a man like me. I thought you would realize you had made a terrible mistake. And now I know I was the one who was wrong. You thought they sent the wrong person. You thought I was too beautiful, he said, telling the plain truth. I thought you were too beautiful and too fine for a rough place like this, for a man like me. I figured you would take one look around and know you had made a big mistake. But now, I reckon I was the one who got it wrong, assuming I knew what kind of woman could make it out here. I mistook pretty for fragile. He met her gaze. You are not weak, Amelia. That is for certain. She nodded, but I am not always as brave as I act. Tonight, when that little leg was stuck, her voice trembled. I was scared to death, not just of losing the mare and foal, but of failing you, of proving you were right to doubt me and send me back. I am not sending you back. He set his cup down firmly. I mean every word of it. Amelia, listen to me. I do not know much about fancy manners or courting, but I know horses, and I know good horse people. What you did tonight, that grit and patience, well, you just cannot fake that. You are the real deal. If you are willing to stay, I am willing to be the kind of partner you deserve. She stayed quiet for a long moment. By the firelight, he saw tears in her eyes, but she blinked them back. I am willing, she said, more than willing. Mr. Ward, for the first time in 2 years, I feel like I can finally breathe. I can just be myself here, and I do not want to lose that. Then you will not, he promised. We will make this work. They finished their coffee in a comfortable silence. Outside, the sky began to lighten and a rooster crowed, announcing the new day. The sounds of morning began, with birds stirring and horses moving in the corral. We ought to get a few hours of sleep, Declan finally said. It has been a long night. I want to check on Juniper first. Me too, he said. They walked to the barn together. The mare was on her feet eating, while the little filly nursed, her tail twitching with joy. She needs a name, Amelia said softly, her eyes full of affection for the foal. We both brought her into this world. Amelia smiled, thinking, how about Hope? It just seems to fit. Hope? Declan tried the name, looking at the wobbly, determined little filly. I like it. Hope it is. When they returned to the cabin, the sun was rising over the mountains. The sky was painted gold and pink. As Declan turned to his room, Amelia stopped him. Mr. Ward? Declan, she tested his first name, a little unsure of herself. Would it be too forward of me to say, I am glad I am here. Despite everything, I am glad. A real smile spread across his face. I am glad too, Amelia. I surely am. Now get some rest. We will check on Hope at midday. She smiled. Good morning, I suppose? Good morning, he replied. But sleep did not come easy for Declan, his mind replaying the night. He kept seeing Amelia's face in the lantern light, so focused and strong as she worked on the mare. Determination in her voice, remembering her relief when the foal took its first breath. She had not been putting on a show for him. She was simply doing what needed to be done with skill and heart. It was a passion for the work, and he knew he had been wrong about her, completely and utterly wrong. That hard truth made him ask himself a tough question. What else had he been wrong about? For 3 long years, Declan told himself he was content alone, that he did not need anyone, just the ranch and his animals. He let the ghosts of his past convince him that solitude was his path. But watching Amelia, seeing the confidence in her every move in that barn, changed something. Hearing her gentle voice soothe that mare stirred a feeling he thought was long gone. It was not just because she was beautiful, though Lord knows she was. It was something deeper, a sort of recognition, like finding a kindred spirit. Here was someone who understood the meaning behind the work, not just the labor itself. The thought was both terrifying and exhilarating all at once. When Declan finally slept, he dreamed of green eyes and auburn hair. He woke to the wonderful smell of frying bacon and fresh coffee, feeling a bit lost for a moment. He had slept later than he had in years. In the main room, Amelia was already at the stove. She looked as if she had been cooking in his kitchen her whole life. "I hope you don't mind," she said when she noticed him. "I figured after last night, we could both use a proper breakfast. I found some bread, too." "Amelia," he said gently, until she stopped and looked at him. "It is fine, thank you." Some of the worry left her shoulders. "I was not sure about your routine." "Do not worry about a routine. Whatever works for you is fine by me." They ate at the small table, and he found himself watching the simple way she buttered her bread. He noticed the little furrow of concentration on her brow as she listened to his plans for the day. She asked smart questions about the cattle and preparing them for winter. "My father always said cattle were straightforward, but unforgiving." Amelia said, "Horses might survive your mistakes, but a cow will not give you a second chance." "Your father was right. In my experience, both will punish a man for being careless." "True enough." She paused, then asked, "About Reverend Mitchell, when were you thinking of asking him to come out?" "Next week, if that suits you," he said. She nodded. "No, next week is fine." "No point in putting this off, is there?" The way she said it made him look up. She just stared at her plate, looking like she was bracing herself for a cold business deal. And maybe that's all it was supposed to be, a practical arrangement, plain and simple. But looking at the woman who saved his favorite mare, who cried when the new foal was born, who walked through his barn like she was born there, he knew that just wasn't enough. Declan wanted to offer her something more than just a deal. "Amelia," he said, real careful, "I know we agreed this was a partnership, built on what we could do for each other. And I'm not saying we should pretend it's some grand romance, but," he trailed off, "I'm thinking we could try to build something real here. Not just a working agreement, but a real marriage. Maybe not right away, but over time, if you're willing." She looked up, surprised. "What exactly are you saying, Declan?" "I'm saying I like you." The words felt small. "I respect you. Your grit, your skill. We work good together. Maybe we don't have to settle for just an arrangement. Maybe we can aim for more." "More?" she asked slowly. "Skip it for a start, a true partnership. And maybe down the line something closer to what a marriage ought to be." Amelia was quiet for a good long while. "That sounds mighty scary." "It is," he admitted, "but not as scary as spending the next 40 years living like polite strangers. I've had enough of being lonely, Amelia. I don't want to be lonely with you in the house." "Me neither," she said, finally meeting his eyes. "All right, Declan, we can try. But you need to know I'm not sure how. My folks, they chose each other. They had a proper courtship. We're starting this backwards. So we choose now," he said. "We choose to try right here." "To try," she echoed, a small smile finally appearing. "Fair warning, though, I'm not the kind of wife my aunt wanted me to be. I'd rather be in a barn than a fancy parlor, and I've got opinions." "Good," Declan said, his voice firm. "I need a partner who can help run this ranch. Not someone who just sits around looking pretty. I don't give a damn about that. I care that you'll work beside me and tell me when I'm being a fool. And that, oh, you'll be honest even when it's hard. Can you do that?" "Yes," she said, no hesitation. "Can you do the same?" "I can try," he promised. "Then it's a deal." They shook hands right there. The handshake felt so formal they both had to laugh. "Come on," Declan said, standing up. "Let's go." To check on Hope before we talked the day away. The little filly was already thriving and nursing strong. She was already showing her bold and curious personality. Juniper watched over her like a true mother hen, but she let Declan and Amelia come near, seeming to know they were the ones who helped her. "Well, she is going to be a real beauty," Amelia said softly. She ran a hand down Hope's back as the foal searched her pockets for a treat. "She has wonderful bone structure. She'll have her mama's stamina and hopefully her good sense. Juniper's the calmest horse I know." "Will you train her to be a riding horse? Or keep her for breeding?" Amelia asked. Depends on her nature. If she's got the mind for it, I will train her. If not, she will make a fine mare for the program. They passed the morning doing the usual work around the ranch, checking on animals and fences. They moved some supplies from one shed to another. Amelia worked right beside him. She learned his ways without a single complaint, asking questions and offering smart suggestions. By the afternoon, Declan realized he was having a good time, something he had not felt in years. It was just plain satisfying to have someone to talk to while he worked, someone who understood the why of it all and whose thoughts were sharp and helpful. Later in the barn, Amelia asked casually, "Where is your mother buried?" Declan paused, surprised by the question. Up on the rise behind the house, in a grove of aspen trees. It was her favorite spot. "May I see it?" He looked at her face, trying to figure out why she was asking. "Because this will be my home too," Amelia said simply. "I would like to pay my respects to the folks who built this place, to understand it." Something in Declan's chest tightened. This will be my home too. It was not just some arrangement to her. It was home. He nodded, unable to speak past the lump in his throat, and led her up the hill. The grove was peaceful, with 3 simple wooden crosses marking the graves of his father, his mother, and his brother. His brother, Thomas. Someone had planted wildflowers at the base of the crosses. They were sleeping for the winter, but you could tell they had bloomed beautifully. Amelia stood reading the names. After a moment, she said, "Thomas was only 22 when he passed." "A fever took him in 3 days," Declan said, the words catching in his throat. "He was healthy one day and gone the next. I could not save him." Amelia's hand found his, her fingers lacing through his own. It was the first time they had touched for comfort, not for work. The simple kindness of it made something inside Declan finally crack open. "He was going to take over the ranch," Declan said, the words spilling out. "He was better with people than me. Thomas was the heart of the business. I was just the serious one keeping the books. When he passed, I felt like I had failed all of them. My father built this ranch from dust, and my mother held it together. Then it was just me. I was not sure if I was strong enough to carry that weight alone." "You are more than enough," Amelia said with force. "Declan, this whole ranch is thriving because of you. The animals are healthy. You have held this place together through so much loss and hard work. That is not failure. That is real strength." He shook his head. "Most days it just feels like being stubborn." "Well, maybe real strength is just stubbornness that refuses to quit," she said, squeezing his hand. "Thank you for showing me out of this place, for trusting me." They stood there a while longer, holding hands. The wind whispered through the trees. Finally, Amelia said, "I ought to tell you the real reason I left Boston." "You do not have to," he said. "I want to. If we are going to build something real, then you should know." She took a deep breath. "My aunt tried to marry me off to a rich banker, a man named Worthington. We had only 3 supervised visits before he asked my aunt for my hand in marriage. She said yes without even asking me. I told her I barely knew the man and did not like what I saw. She said I was being childish, that love was a luxury, but a practical woman marries for security." "What did you say to that?" Declan asked. "I said I would rather be poor and free than wealthy and trapped. She told me I was being dramatic, that I did not understand how hard the world is for a woman by herself. And maybe she was right, but then Worthington came to visit, and my aunt left us completely alone. She was just so eager for the match to go through, and he—" Amelia's voice turned to ice. "He tried to kiss me. When I pulled away, he just laughed and told me I had better get used to it. He said my aunt promised him I would be an obedient wife, so I slapped him." "Good," Declan said with feeling. "My aunt did not think so. She said I had ruined my best chance and that I was selfish and ungrateful. We had a terrible argument. I told her I would rather live on the street than marry a man like that. So she told me to get out." Her hand tightened in his. "She gave me 1 week to find a new place to live. That is when I answered your advertisement. I had no other plan. I just knew I had to get away before she could force me into another arrangement." "I am mighty glad you did," Declan said quietly. "I am glad you got away, and I am glad you came here. Amelia, you know I would never—" "I know," she said softly. "You have been nothing but respectful since the day I arrived. You have been kind. You treat me like a person, not like a problem to be managed or a possession to be controlled. Do you know how much of that means? I just treated you like any other person. Exactly. She smiled with tears in her eyes. That is what I needed. They walked back down the hill together, hand in hand, and Declan thought about all the things he had gotten wrong. He thought about how wrong he had been about Amelia when she first arrived. He saw a beautiful, refined lady and figured she would be fragile and helpless out here. Lord, he was dead wrong. She was not fragile, she was tough as nails. And she was here by choice to build a life with him, which felt surprisingly right. That evening, while they were fixing supper, Amelia brought up the garden. She said, William, I'd like to expand it next spring. We could have our own vegetables and herbs. She even talked about planting a small orchard with apples and cherries. Declan considered it. That is a whole lot of work, he said. I like to work, she answered, and it will help us be more self-sufficient. He saw then that she was planning for the long haul, right here with him. Is that all right, she asked. He told her it was more than all right. I told you I was not going anywhere, Declan, she said, her voice soft but firm. After supper, they sat by the fire, talking like they had been married for years. It was a comfortable, easy feeling he had not had in a very long time. Before she went to bed, he had to thank her for coming, for saving his animals, for everything. She just smiled and replied, thank you for being someone worth trying with. He stayed by the fire thinking about how he had sent for a practical bride. Instead, he got Amelia, who was beautiful, skilled, and stronger than anyone he knew. His head told him to guard his heart, that this was just an arrangement. But lying on his narrow bed, he found himself hoping for more anyway. For the first time in 3 long years, he was not alone in that house. And for the first time in forever, he could imagine a future worth living. A couple of days later, Declan rode back from Birch Creek with news. He told her that Reverend Mitchell would be there the following Sunday to perform the ceremony. Amelia just nodded, calm as can be, and went right back to kneading her bread dough. For the first time in 3 years, he was not alone, and he could finally imagine a future that was more than just surviving. It felt like a life worth living. The days that followed settled into a routine that felt both new and natural. 2 days after the foal was born, Declan rode to Birch Creek for supplies. He came back saying Reverend Mitchell would be there Sunday to marry them, and Amelia just kept kneading her dough. Their days settled into a simple routine, working from sunup to sundown. Amelia learned the ranch's little secrets, like which barn door hinge sticks. Declan learned she hummed while she worked and could gentle a spooked horse with her voice. He also found out she would not harm a spider because her daddy said they kept the flies away. Their wedding day arrived on a Sunday with a clear sky and a bitter cold snap. Reverend Mitchell, a kindly man in his 60s, showed up right at noon. He did not ask any nosy questions about why they were getting hitched so quick. He just performed the ceremony right there in the cabin with the fireplace crackling. Declan said his vows loud and clear, and he meant every last word of them. Amelia's voice was softer but just as sure, her eyes serious as she made her promises. When the Reverend declared them man and wife, Declan felt her hand tremble a little. He gave her a quick, proper kiss on the cheek. And just like that, they were legally and officially married. It did not feel like a big world-changing event, though. It was more like a quiet door had opened, waiting for them to walk through. After the Reverend left, they stood on the porch for a spell. Well, Amelia said, that's done. He asked if she was all right, and she said she was. He said, we can take our time with this. I know, she said, looking right at him. Thank you for being patient. Real things take time, Declan reminded her. We said we would build something real. She finally smiled, and some of the worry left her shoulders. You are right, Mr. Ward. Now come on, let's go mend that fence before the next storm blows in. She still called him Mr. Ward, keeping a little bit of polite distance between them. Declan tried not to mind it, figuring it would change in its own good time. But sometimes, sitting by the fire, he sure did wish he would hear her say his first name. He wanted to hear it, just like she had said it the morning their little hope was born. The weeks rolled on, and a real Montana snowstorm hit, dumping 2 feet of powder. The cold was fierce, and they were snowed in together for 4 whole days. In that time, Declan discovered Amelia played a mean game of chess. She also had a dry wit that could make him laugh out loud when he was not expecting it. And he learned that those cabin walls were a lot thinner than he had ever noticed before. He'd hear her moving about, the whisper of cloth and the creak of the bed. It was a sweet kind of torture. She was his wife, but not truly. During those long winter nights, they truly began to talk. Amelia spoke of her family's horse farm, lost after her pa died. She told him how her brother just ran the whole thing right into the ground. Declan found himself talking about the war and about watching Thomas pass on. He spoke of the heavy loneliness that after his own mother was gone. I thought I was fine alone, he admitted one night, the fire burning low. I told myself I didn't need a soul, but I reckon I was just afraid of losing someone else. I understand, Amelia said, darning one of his socks. He felt a little flutter in his chest. After I lost everything, I figured it was just safer not to care too much. It felt easier to keep everyone at a distance. But that ain't living, is it? That's just getting basement. No, it's not, he agreed. He watched her hands. Is that why you came? To try living again? Mostly, she looked right at him. I wanted a chance to build something that was mine, something no one could take away from me. Does that make any sense, awhile? Perfect sense. So why'd you send for a bride, Declan? It wasn't just for help around here, was it? He paused, then gave her the whole truth. I was lonely, a deep down, soul-aching lonely. I was afraid another winter alone would make me forget how to be a person. I needed a reason. His voice cracked. A reason to come home at the end of the day. A reason to feel like this ranch was more than just a trap. Amelia set down her sewing and knelt beside his chair. She took his hand, and the simple, tender touch made his throat feel tight. You're not trapped, she said, and you're not alone. We're building something here. It might not be what we planned, but it's real, and we matter. Amelia, he started, feeling a powerful shift between them, but she was already pulling back, picking up her work again. It's getting late, she said softly. We should turn in. He wanted to stop her, to ask if this distance was hurting her too. He wanted to say more, but he just nodded. You are right. Tomorrow is going to be a long day. That night, in the quiet darkness, Declan admitted the truth. He was fallen in love with his wife. It was a quiet kind of love, built on the little things. Her laugh, her gentle hands, her sharp mind. He was fallen hard for Amelia Ward, and he had no earthly idea if she felt the same. January came on with a bitter cold. The work was hard, breaking ice and hauling hay. They only made it through by working together. The young filly, Hope, was growing up beautifully. Amelia trained her with such patience and skill. Declan knew then how wrong he had been about her. They found a comfortable rhythm without even talking about it. He did the heavy lifting. She handled the house. She was also a natural when it came to the horses. Together they made a mighty fine team, but a different kind of feeling was building between them. He felt a jolt whenever their hands brushed by accident, or when he would catch her looking his way. They were both waiting for the other to make the first move. Then a sudden storm in January changed everything. It blew in so fast, it even caught Declan by surprise. The sky went from clear blue to an angry gray in a blink. That does not look good, Amelia said, worry in her voice. No, it is not. We need to get the animals sheltered now. They worked fast, getting the chickens and pigs secured. They drove the cattle to a pasture that had some cover. All the horses were inside except for 3. Juniper, Hope, Vaughn, and Best. The geldings were still out in the far corral. I'll get them, Declan said, already on the move. No, you get inside. Build up that fire and haul in some water. We might be stuck in here for a while. For once, Amelia did not argue. She ran for the cabin as Declan headed for the horses. By the time he reached the corral, the first snowflakes were coming down hard. They were little pellets of ice, driven by a wind that was starting to howl something fierce. Declan got halters on 2 of them quick, but Hope, being young and skittish, was just plain scared. She backed away from him, the whites of her eyes showing. Easy now, girl, Declan said softly. But Hope was not having it. She spun around and bolted right through the open gate. She headed for the open pasture, not the safety of the barn. Now in summer, this is no big deal. But in a blizzard, a horse out on the range could freeze solid in just a few hours. Declan did not even think. He tied the other two horses to the fence and took off after Hope on foot. He ran straight into that blinding snow, the wind just stealing the breath right out of his lungs. He could barely see 10 feet in front of him, but he followed that dark shape, calling her name. He just had to get ahead of her and turn her back toward the barn. He ran for what felt like hours. His legs were burning and his face was numb, but finally he got in front of her. He managed to grab her halter as she tried to slip by him. "Got you," he gasped out. His frozen fingers fumbled with the lead rope. "Come on, girl, let us get you home." But when he turned to lead her back, the ranch was gone. The world was just a wall of white. The wind screamed so loud he could not hear anything else. He thought he knew the way back. But in a whiteout, even a seasoned man can get turned around. Folks have died 50 yards from their own cabin. Declan started walking anyway, leading Hope and trying to keep the wind on his right side. He prayed it was the right direction. Soon he could not feel his own feet or his hands. That deep, seeping cold was making his thoughts slow and fuzzy. He should have reached the barn by now. Or had he gotten turned around? Was he walking in the complete wrong direction? A sharp fear cut right through the fog in his mind. He realized he could die right here, freeze to death in his own pasture, all for chasing a spooked horse. And poor Amelia would be left all alone. She would be a widow after barely a month, trying to run this ranch by herself. He just could not stand that thought. So he put one foot in front of the other. It was all he could do. Hope followed him quietly now, as if she finally understood the danger they were in. Declan's legs felt like lead. He was tired down to his bones, and Lord, it would be so easy just to stop. Moment, just to rest. "Declan," a voice called out to him, just a whisper in the storm. "Declan, where are you?" "Amelia." His own voice was just a rasp. "Amelia, go on back inside now." But her voice came again, getting closer. Then a shape appeared through all that white. It was Amelia, all bundled in his big work coat, with a rope tied around her waist. She was following that rope like it was life itself, and when she saw him, she cried out. "Oh, thank the Lord," she gasped. She finally reached him. "I tied it to the porch. Come on now, just follow it back." "You shouldn't have," he said. "You could have gotten lost." "And you ain't lost, you stubborn old mule? Come on, we're both freezing to death." She took Hope's lead in one hand and his arm in the other, and together they followed that rope on home. Through the storm, that rope felt a mile long. Declan stumbled twice and would have gone down if Amelia hadn't held him up with a strength you wouldn't expect. But at last, they saw the dark shape of the cabin. It appeared from the white chaos like a blessing. And then they were on the porch and through the door into that wonderful warmth. Amelia slammed the door and leaned against it, trying to catch her breath. Hope stood right there, looking confused in the middle of the room, dripping snow everywhere. Declan tried to get to the fire, but his legs just gave out, and he sat down hard on the floor. "Oh, no, you don't," Amelia said sharply, hurrying over. "Don't you dare just sit there. You're half frozen. We got to get you warm." She was right. He started shaking something fierce, his teeth chattering so hard he couldn't even talk. She got him to his feet somehow, holding most of his weight, and got him to the fire. She pulled off his coat, his shirt, and his boots. Her fingers had to be just as cold, but she worked with a purpose. "The bedroom," she told him. "You need dry clothes and blankets. I'll take care of Hope. You just worry about not dying on me." She nudged him toward the bedroom. "Go on, get changed. I'll be right there." Declan made it to the bedroom and got out of his wet trousers and into some dry long johns. But his hands were shaking too bad to do anything else. He was just sitting on the bed, trying to make his fingers work, when Amelia came in with quilts and hot water bottles, looking real serious. "In bed," she ordered. "Right now." "I'm fine." "The heck you are. I saw my daddy treat this twice. That first hour is everything. So get in that bed before I have to put you in it." He did as she said, too tired to argue. She piled quilts over him till he could hardly move, then tucked hot water bottles by his feet and his sides. Then she climbed right in beside him, still in her clothes, and wrapped her arms around him, holding him close. "Body heat," she said firmly. "It's the fastest way to warm a man up. Now you be quiet and stop all that shaking." But he couldn't stop. The shivers took over his whole body. But Amelia just held him right on through it, rubbing his arms and his back, her voice low and calm, as she just talked about this and that, about Hope standing there confused, about that wild storm outside, and about her smart idea with the rope. She held him close, giving him her own warmth, just like she had read somewhere. Little by little, the terrible shaking finally started to stop. Amelia held him steady, her presence a rock in the storm. "You scared me," she finally said. "When that blizzard got worse and you still were not back, Her voice hitched. "I thought I was going to lose you out there." He turned in her arms and saw tears streaming down her face. The sight of it just broke his heart. "Amelia, I am so sorry. I was not thinking." "You nearly died," she said, her own voice trembling. "You almost died saving a horse." "I know she is important, Declan, but you matter more. You matter more to me than you should," she confessed. And at the thought of losing her, he could not stop himself. He kissed her. He did not plan it. He just leaned forward and pressed his lips to hers. He felt her sharp intake of breath and tasted the salt from her tears. For one awful second, she went completely still, and he thought he had ruined everything. But then she was kissing him back, her arms wrapping tight around him. The kiss deepened, becoming something raw and real. All the careful distance they had kept between them burned away in a heartbeat. When they pulled apart, breathless, Declan whispered, "I am sorry, I should not have." "Do you want me here?" she asked, her voice fierce. "Not as your help, not as just a wife on paper. Do you actually want me, Declan? I have to know if this is real." "Convenient?" He let out a rough laugh. "Amelia, there is nothing convenient about you. You are complicated and smart, and you scare me half to death most days. Because I do not know if a man like me is what you could ever truly want." The honest words hung in the air between them. "I look at you and see someone too good for me. Someone who ended up with me because you needed a way out. I know we said this was a practical arrangement, but I just cannot do it anymore, Amelia." His voice cracked. "I cannot pretend I do not care." "What do you want?" she asked him, her voice now soft. "You," he said simply. "I want this, all of this, to be real. But I will not push you into it." Amelia was quiet for a long moment, her eyes searching his. She spoke soft. "You never asked who I am. You just looked at me and decided you already knew. You figured I was too refined for this life. But you never asked what I was hoping for when I answered your letter." "Well, I wanted this." Her hand came up and gently touched his jaw. "I wanted a real partner, not just a pretty thing to own. Someone who'd see my strength and not be scared of it. Someone who would just let me be me. A woman who is more comfortable out in a barn than in a fancy parlor. I wanted honesty and a chance to build a real life." Her eyes met his. "I came to want you, Declan Ward. It wasn't right at first, not when I stepped off that stagecoach, but every day since has changed things. Every conversation, every task we shared, I just wanted you more. And yes, that terrifies me. I held back, afraid you just saw me as a solution to your loneliness, a convenience. But the plain and simple truth is I have been falling in love with you." The words tumbled out of her. "I'm not even sure when it happened for real. Maybe it was when you let me name Hope, or when you trusted me enough to show me your family's resting place. Maybe it was that gentle kiss at our wedding when you looked at me like I was something special. But somewhere down the line, this stopped being an arrangement. For me, it became everything." Declan felt his heart swell in his chest. Amelia was all he could manage. "Then today, you nearly died. And it hit me. If I lost you before I was brave enough to tell you how I felt, I'd regret it forever. So yes, Declan, I want you. I want us. I want this marriage to be real, messes and all. If you'll have me, and forgive me for being too scared to say it sooner." He kissed her then, and he meant it. He poured all his relief and joy and love into it, a deep, bone-tired gratitude. He was a man who had been alone for far too long and had impossibly found the one who understood him. She answered him with that same fire, her hands tangling in his hair, her body pressing close. When they parted, breathless, Declan finally said the words, "I love you. I should have said it weeks ago." "I love you, Amelia, the real you, stubborn and capable and fearless and kind. I love the way you hum while you work and how you laugh at that little calf, Hope. I love that you stood your ground with me, even when I was too stubborn to see past my own ideas. I love you. I am so sorry it took me nearly dying to find the nerve to say it. The real danger was me, Amelia whispered, being too afraid to love you. But I am not afraid anymore. She smiled through her tears. Well, I am scared, but I am doing it anyway. He kissed her again as she pulled away the quilts between them, his clumsy, half-frozen hands helping. Soon there was nothing between them but skin and warmth and a desperate need to be close. Are you warm? Are you warm enough? Amelia asked, her voice soft. He pulled her closer, hardly believing she was really in his arms. Outside, the blizzard howled, but in that cabin they were plenty warm. The two strangers had found something real in that little frontier bedroom. It was not some fancy romance from a novel, but something honest and true. They were just two people learning to trust, learning to be real with each other. Hours later, they lay tangled up in the quilts, quiet and content. Amelia drew circles on Declan's chest. We probably ought to check on Hope and the animals. In a little bit, he murmured, holding her tight, not ready to let go. My only regret, she whispered, is that we waited so long to do this. She looked up at him and smiled. Well, let's not waste any more time then. No more tiptoeing around, just us building this life. You reckon you can do that? I can surely do that, he said, and gave her a kiss to prove his point. When they finally got up, they found Hope sleeping peacefully by the warm fire. The storm was still blowing, but for the first time, Declan felt like he was truly home. They ended up snowed in together for the next 3 days, and they spent that time laughing and talking, growing closer than ever. They shared everything, plans for the ranch, old memories, and their dreams. Declan told her things about the war he had never told another living soul, and Amelia told him about losing her family's farm and her stuffy life in Boston. I used to dream about horses all the time, she said one night as they made dinner. They moved around the small kitchen together easily, like they had done it for years. In Boston, I just felt stuck, making small talk that did not mean a thing. I would dream about the smell of a barn, of good, honest work with my hands. I figured that part of my life was gone forever, just something to survive. You do not have to give up anything here, Declan said, watching her. Here you can have all the hard work you want. Oh, she grinned. I know. That is why this feels like I am finally where I was always meant to be. On the fourth morning, a deep silence woke them. The storm had passed. Everything outside was brand new, covered in a deep, glittering blanket of snow. The sun came out, painting the sky a brilliant blue. They worked all day, digging out and checking on the animals. Everything made it through just fine, even Hope, who played in the snow like the storm was a gift just for her. Later that afternoon, they stood together on the porch, looking at all the work left to do. Amelia leaned into Declan. You reckon the road to town is clear yet? She asked. Probably not for a week or so. Wait, Mom. He answered. I was just thinking we should let folks know we are okay. Everyone out here knows how to get through a storm. They will figure we are fine, he assured her. Still, she looked up at him. I want them to know. I want them to know we are not just getting by. We are happy, Declan finished her thought. She smiled. Yes, we are happy. Is that allowed? He kissed her head, taking in the sweet scent of her hair. He could not believe this amazing woman was his. It is more than allowed, he said softly. I think we have earned it. Standing on the porch his own father built, he watched the sun go down over the snowy mountains. With his wife tucked warm against his side, Declan finally understood what his mother had meant. Love did not make a man weak, and it sure did not make survival any harder. Love was the very reason surviving was worthwhile. Love is what turns a piece of land into a home. It turns being alone into being a team. It changes just getting by into a life truly worth living. He had thought he was too broken to fix. He figured all that time alone had made him unable to connect with anyone. He was wrong about that. He was just waiting for the right person to show him that opening your heart is the bravest thing a man can do. The next morning, Declan woke up and Amelia's side of the bed was cold and empty. For a terrible second, his heart stopped. He thought she had changed her mind and left him. But then he heard her soft voice coming from the main room. He got dressed quick and went to find her. There she was, sitting by the fire, with Hope the foal resting her head right in her lap. That clever horse had figured out how to open the door and decided mornings were for visiting. Amelia was stroking Hope's face and talking to her, a peaceful start to the day. Seeing his wife and the foal like that in the morning light just about made Declan's heart burst. She is going to be completely spoiled, he said, leaning against the doorframe. Amelia's smile lit up her whole face. She already is, but she's earned it. You are a tough girl. She is not the only one, Declan said, walking over to them. He bent down and gave Amelia a proper good morning kiss, and she smiled right into it. Flattery, she laughed. Now help me get this horse out of the house before she decides the rug is her pasture. They led Hope back to the barn, where Juniper greeted her baby with happy sounds. All the other animals had weathered the storm just fine. The world just felt brighter now, full of new possibilities. The days that followed were the happiest Declan had ever known. It was not about big events, but the small, quiet moments they shared. Like Amelia humming while she baked bread, or her surprise hugs while he worked. Their easy conversations over supper filled the little cabin with warmth. They finally moved all of Declan's things into the bedroom, making it theirs. Amelia hung curtains she had sewn, adding a soft touch to the place. The cabin was starting to feel more and more like a real home. Declan found he loved watching her move around the kitchen with purpose. He was glad she was making this place truly her own. One evening by the fire, Amelia said, "I've been thinking about the garden." He was rubbing her cold feet, a comforting little habit they had fallen into. Not just bigger, but planned out, with 3 sections for different plants. And if we build cold frames, we could have a much longer growing season. That is ambitious, Declan said with a warm smile, but I like it. She pulled a folded paper from her pocket, covered in her neat handwriting. I made a list of seeds and a timeline for when to plant everything. He took the list and was mighty impressed by how thorough she was. This is a fine plan. We will need to make a trip into town for all this. We can give the list to Hutchkins at the general store. How long do you reckon until the roads are clear? She asked. Another week, maybe 2. We are not in any big hurry, are we? Amelia got quiet. No, no hurry. It is just, I want people to see us. To see that we are really married, that we are happy together. Her voice was surprisingly fierce. I want your neighbors to see you are not alone. And I want the women in town to see that I am here to stay. What is it you want, love? The sweet name slipped out so naturally now. Her face softened. I want them to see us the way I see us. A real couple, a proper marriage, not some business deal everyone was just waiting to go south. Declan moved her foot and pulled her right into his lap, holding her tight. Anyone who thinks this will fail just plain doesn't know you. They don't know how strong you are, how much grit you have. You have already proved your worth 10 times over, Amelia. You do not need a stamp of approval from anybody. I know, but I still want it. She settled against him with a long sigh. Is that silly of me? No, darling, it is just being human. He kissed the top of her head. And when we ride to town, we will show them. We will show them exactly what we have built out here. That chance came along quicker than a flash flood. 3 days later, a rider came up from town. Young Billy Patterson, who worked at the general store and made delivery runs whenever the roads were clear. He brought supplies folks had ordered before the storm, checked on the outlying families, and carried news between the scattered homesteads. Ms. Whitmore is beside herself, wanting to know how the new Mrs. Ward got through that blizzard, Billy said with a grin, while Amelia poured him a hot coffee and Declan helped unload their order. Half the town is making bets on whether your bride made it, or if we would find her on the first stagecoach east come springtime. Well then, you can tell them she is more than fine. She saved my hide during that storm, Declan said flatly. And you tell Ms. Whitmore if she wants to gossip, she is welcome to ride out here and get the story straight from the source. Billy's eyes got as big as saucers. You ain't kidding about her saving your life? I got turned around in that whiteout chasing a stray horse, Declan explained. I would have frozen solid if Amelia had not rigged a lifeline and come out looking for me. She has got more good sense than half the fellas I know. Well, I will be. Billy looked at Amelia with brand new respect. Begging your pardon, ma'am, but that is quite a story. A real story. Just wait until I tell everyone in town. After Billy rode off, Amelia turned to Declan with her eyebrows raised. You did not have to go bragging on me like that. It was not bragging, just telling the plain truth. He pulled her in close. Besides, if folks are going to talk about you, they might as well have their facts straight. You are something else. You married me anyway. I surely did not I? She smiled and gave him a kiss. My poor judgment aside, I should get started on supper. And you have that stretch of fence to check before sundown. That I do, but he did not let her go right away. Instead, holding her a moment longer, breathing in the scent of her hair, and just thinking how completely she had become a part of his world. Amelia, thank you. For what? For coming out here, for staying, for loving me, even when I gave you every reason not to at the start. Declan Ward, you gave me every reason to stay from the moment I set foot here. You just could not see it yet. She touched his cheek gently. Now you go on and check that fence before you get all sentimental. I will have supper hot and ready when you get back. Working by himself on the fence line, Declan found his mind wandering to what was ahead. Spring would bring more chores, calving season, breaking new ground for Amelia's big garden, and getting Hope used to a saddle. Summer would mean long days putting up hay, keeping the buildings and equipment in good repair, and getting ready for the next winter. It was the rhythm of the ranch, season after season, a job that never ended but gave meaning to every single day. Before Amelia arrived, he saw it all as a burden, a duty to the ranch his folks had built. But now he saw it as it was a life he was building with the woman he loved, and that made all the difference. They were doing it together. As he was mending the last bit of fence, he heard a couple of riders coming in from town, moving with a purpose. He recognized them right away, Reverend Mitchell and, surprisingly, Doc Henderson. Afternoon, Declan, the Reverend called out as they got down from their horses. Not at all, Reverend. What brings y'all out this way? Declan asked. Young Billy Patterson told us quite a story in town this morning, said Doc Henderson. Said your wife kept you from freezing to death in that blizzard. Figured I'd better check on you for any frostbite or other delayed troubles, the doc added. I'm all right, Doc. Amelia took real good care of me. All the same, I'd like to check. And meet this brave lady of yours. It is not every day a woman from Boston shows such grit. As they walked to the cabin, Declan swelled with pride seeing Amelia inside, moving about the kitchen with such ease. That was his wife, his partner. He wanted them to see she was not just pretty, but strong and capable too. Amelia greeted them warmly with coffee and the last of her baking. She acted like she entertained company every day. While the doc looked Declan over, he declared him fit, though his fingers needed watching. Meanwhile, the Reverend spoke with Amelia. I must confess, Mrs. Ward, some folks were worried after the wedding. Not about you, Ma, but whether a lady with your background could manage out here. Especially with winter coming on so fast. Amelia smiled. I appreciate your honesty, Reverend, but I am not some delicate flower. I grew up on my father's horse ranch. I can help birth foals, mend a fence, and shoot straight. Owning a few nice dresses does not change that. Doc Henderson let out a laugh. Declan, I like her. She's got some real backbone. I know, Declan said, smiling at his wife. Took me about 3 days to see it. 3 days, Amelia teased. You doubted me the second I got here. I surely did. I was a fool. Yes, you were, she said, her smiling eyes showing she was just teasing. The Reverend watched them, looking mighty pleased. It does my heart good seeing you two so happy. I worried your marriage was just for convenience. I am mighty glad to see I was wrong about that. It was a practical arrangement, Amelia said. We were just smart enough to let it become something more. There is no shame in that at all, the Reverend agreed. In fact, that shows real wisdom. Some folks marry for love and lose it, but a couple that chooses to love, well, that is truly something special. After their visitors left, Amelia leaned her head against Declan's shoulder. That was nice. Doc Henderson and the Reverend just wanted to be sure I was all right. She turned and looked right up at him. Do you think we are all right? Darling, I think we are better than all right. He kissed her forehead. I think we are building something real and good, and I promise it is only going to get better. February came with more snow, but nothing as bad as that January blizzard. Declan and Amelia fell into their winter work, feeding the animals and planning for the spring. In the evenings, they would sit together. Amelia started her garden seeds on the windowsill. As the first garden shoots appeared, Declan mended tack for the spring work. On those long winter nights, they talked about everything, from books to ranch business. And Declan found himself opening up, sharing things he'd never spoken of before. He admitted his fear of not living up to what his father built, and the guilt he carried over Thomas. He told her what a wonder it was to find her. "You know what I love most?" Amelia asked one night. "It's the quiet. Back in Boston, my aunt's house was always loud and crowded. There were always people around, telling me what to do and who I ought to be. But this," she said, looking around the cabin, "this is peaceful. Here we can just be ourselves. This is exactly what I needed." "You don't miss any of it?" Declan asked her gently. "Not even a little?" She set down her sewing and settled into his lap. "What I missed back there was real work. Work that actually matters. Something you can feel in your own two hands. Out here, if I don't bake the bread, we don't have bread to eat. It's a satisfaction that polite conversation in some stuffy parlor could never give." "I'm just glad you're happy here," Declan said, holding her tight. "My only regret," she whispered, "is that we wasted time being so careful at the start." "Maybe," he countered softly. "Or maybe we needed that time to learn how to trust. Maybe we got here exactly when we were supposed to." She looked up at him with a smile. "When did you get so wise, Mr. Ward?" "Had to, Mrs. Ward. I married a woman too smart for simple answers." "Ward." They laughed, and all the chores were forgotten for a little while. By mid-February, the weather had finally cleared up enough for them to head into Birch Creek. They loaded the wagon with eggs, butter, and some pelts to trade for supplies. Amelia put on one of her nicer dresses, not her fancy Boston one, but something respectable. She wanted to look just right, showing she was a lady, but also a rancher's wife. "You don't have to get all gussied up," Declan teased her. "I know," she said, "but I want them to see us as a proper couple." He smiled. "Darling, they would see that even if you were wearing a flour sack." But he understood. This was their first time in town as husband and wife, and she wanted to make a good impression. Not to be fancy, but to show everyone that she belonged right here with him. The ride into town was chilly but beautiful under a big Texas sky. They talked about seeds, supplies, and maybe asking a neighbor about buying a new milk cow. Their easy conversation warmed Declan's heart more than any fire could. Birch Creek was bustling with folks happy to be out after the big snow. When they stepped into the general store, the whole place went quiet. And of course, Mrs. Whitmore was there, eyeing Amelia. "Well now, Mrs. Ward, what a surprise. We heard all about that awful blizzard. And you wanted to see if the city bride made it through?" Amelia's voice was sweet, but it had some fire in it. "I assure you I am doing just fine. The ranch is thriving, and my husband and I are mighty happy." "I can see that," Mrs. Whitmore said, sounding sincere for once. "You do look good, my dear. And Declan, you look better than I have seen you in years." "I am," Declan said, pulling Amelia close to his side. It turns out having the right partner makes all the difference. They spent the next hour getting their business done, trading their goods and ordering what they needed for the ranch. Folks came up to them, some curious, others just plain friendly. Everyone seemed to notice how well-suited and happy they looked. Doc Henderson came over while they were ordering seeds. "How are those fingers, Declan?" "Good as new, Doc, and it is all thanks to Amelia." "It takes a special person to stay that calm," the doctor told Amelia. "You did real good, Mrs. Ward. Not many folks could have rigged that lifeline." "I just did what had to be done," Amelia said. "That is where you are wrong," the doc replied with a smile. "Most folks would just freeze up. You kept a clear head and saved my life. That is something special." After they loaded their goods, Declan noticed Amelia was awfully quiet on the ride home. He asked what was on her mind. "Town was not what I expected," she said. "Back in Boston, people judge your dress and your family. Here, they judge our character. They wanted to see if I could handle myself in a crisis, if I could pull my own weight. And I prefer that. I would rather be judged by what I can do, not by my name." "You are impressive either way," Declan said. "But out here, a good name is earned. Folks care if you are a good neighbor, if your word is true, and if you are tough." and you have proven all of that. Have I? She asked him softly. Amelia, you work harder than any hand I have ever hired, and you never complain. You have faced every hardship here. If that is not proof, then I do not know what is. She was quiet, then said, thank you for believing in me when I did not believe in myself. Always, he said simply. I will always believe in you. They rode the rest of the way in silence. As they pulled up to the cabin, Amelia said, it is strange how quickly this place feels like home. I have only been here 3 months, but seeing that cabin felt like coming home for good. That is because it is home, Declan said, as he helped her down from the wagon. Our home together. Later that night, all the chores were done. They sat by the fire when Amelia said, I need to tell you something. The seriousness in her voice made Declan stop his work and give her his full attention. What is it? He asked. My monthly time, it is 2 weeks late, she said, and with feeling poorly in the mornings, I believe I am with child. Declan's heart filled with joy, but that joy was quickly followed by a cold fear. Childbirth was a dangerous thing, so far from any doctor's help. He asked her, how do you feel about it? Terrified, she admitted, and so very happy. I know the danger, Declan. I know it all too well. But, she trailed off. Her hand rested on her belly. I want this child. I want our family to begin with you. He pulled her in close, his fear turning into a powerful need to protect her. We will get through this. We will have Doc Henderson come. We will be ready. You are going to be all right, he promised her. I will do my best, she said with a shaky laugh. But I am told pregnant women can be quite a handful. I do not care, he said softly. You want. His voice went thick. Just be careful, all right? I promise, she said. They sat up late that night talking about the future for real now. They figured out where a nursery could go and what all needed changing in the cabin. Talking about a baby and running the ranch was a whole lot to take in. It was exciting and a little scary all at once. It was real proof that their life together was making something new. Something that would be here long after they were gone. I thought I knew what I wanted, Amelia finally said, resting her head on Declan's shoulder. I thought I just wanted to get away. But you gave me so much more. You gave me a home, a family, a future I never even dared to hope for. You did the same for me, Declan replied softly. I was just getting by before you showed up. You changed all that. We changed each other, she corrected him. I reckon that's what love does. It doesn't make you less of who you are. It just makes you more, a little braver, a little more hopeful, willing to risk it all for something real. Well, when did you get so wise, Mrs. Ward? He teased. She smiled into his shoulder. The day I married a man brave enough to take a chance on a stranger. Before long, March rolled in, bringing the first signs of spring. The days got longer and the snow started to melt. The first birds began to show up. Looking for a place to nest. When Doc Henderson made his rounds, he confirmed it. Amelia was pregnant, and he said she was as healthy as could be. Everything looked good for her to carry the baby just fine. The little one was due in early September, which gave them the whole summer to get ready. So they got busy, not just for the baby, but for the ranch. They built garden frames and filled them with good soil. They planted seeds, and soon little green shoots were poking up. The cattle were moved to the spring pasture, and then came calving season. It was tough work, but it went well. They only lost one calf, and it was to a coyote. Nothing they could have done. Meanwhile, their little foal, Hope, was growing up beautifully. Declan started her training, getting her used to a lead and a friendly touch. Amelia would watch them, sitting on the corral fence, just smiling. Sometimes she'd offer a little advice, but mostly she just enjoyed it. The sight of her husband and the foal they'd saved together filled her heart. She is going to be something else, Amelia said one afternoon. She watched Hope trot around, looking just as graceful as her mama. You can just see it. She's smart. She could be the start of a whole new line of horses for us, if we breed her right. We'll breed her right, Declan corrected her. This is our place, Amelia. This ranch, these horses, it's all ours. Ours, she repeated with a warm smile. I sure do like the sound of that. The weeks flew by with hard work and happy waiting. Amelia's belly started to show, a clear sign of the new life growing inside her. Declan couldn't stop looking at her, amazed by it all. He was a little scared, but mostly he was just in awe that their child was growing inside the woman he loved more than anything. By April, the last of the snow was gone, and the ranch had found its spring rhythm. Declan looked around and realized something that made his heart swell right up. This place, which was once just property and a duty to the dead, had become so much more. It was a real home now, not because of the house or the land, but because of the life he and Amelia were building. Their love was turning every simple thing into something special. One evening on the porch, as the sunset painted the mountains, Amelia turned to him. She asked, "Do you remember that first day you looked at me like I was a problem you couldn't solve? I remember thinking you were too beautiful and too proper for a rough place like this. But now I know you're not too anything. You're exactly right for me and for this life." He took her hand in his. "I love you, Amelia Ward. More than I knew a man could love someone. I love you too," she whispered back. "And I thank God every day I was brave enough to answer you. That we were both brave enough to let this become real." He squeezed her hand. "No regrets? Only that it took us so long to say how we felt." She gave him a sweet smile. "But we have all the time in the world now," he agreed, and he kissed her. The sun set on the ranch they had built, on the life they had chosen together. They weren't just two lonely folks anymore. They were true partners. They had faced down doubts and dangers and had saved one another completely. Now, as spring promised new beginnings, they were ready for whatever came next. They were husband and wife, bound together by a love that was stronger than anything. Summer hit with a fury. The Montana sun was so strong it made that winter blizzard feel like a dream. Amelia's pregnancy went along just fine, even with the scorching heat. By July, her belly was round and full, and she moved with a special kind of care. Declan had turned into the most protective husband you have ever seen. He was always hovering, trying to stop her from lifting or reaching for a single thing. It drove Amelia half crazy, but deep down, it pleased her to no end. "Declan Ward, I am pregnant, not an invalid," she said one afternoon as he grabbed her laundry basket. "Women have been having babies and doing chores since the dawn of time. Not my wife and not while carrying my baby," he said, taking the basket from her. "You'll hang it all wrong," she teased. "Then you can teach me how while you rest in the shade." He led her to a chair he'd set up under the old cottonwood tree. "Please, Amelia, let me do this for you. Let me handle this." His voice was so gentle it stopped her. She sat and watched him. He fumbled with the laundry, making a wrinkled, lopsided mess of it. Her heart just about burst with love for this man who was trying so hard. He was showing her every day how much he truly cared. Meanwhile, Amelia's garden was growing like a wildfire, better than she had ever dreamed. Tomatoes were heavy on the vine and beans climbed the frames Declan built. They had fresh food every single day, and Amelia canned for the winter. "We are going to eat good this winter," she said, looking at her jars with pride. "Next summer, I am thinking about planting even more, maybe some melons." "Whatever makes you happy," Declan said, wrapping his arms around her. He gently rested his hands on her round belly. "I am more worried about next month. Doc Henderson said he will come stay for the last 2 weeks, just to be here." "That is good," she said, leaning into him as the baby kicked. "Feel that?" "Now that is a strong one," Declan said, his voice full of wonder. Every little kick was proof of the new life they had made together. "Boy or girl, it does not matter. Long as you are both healthy," he whispered. But she could hear the fear in his voice. It was a fear they both shared. They did not speak of it, but they both knew having a baby was a risky business. No amount of love could promise everything would be all right. "I am strong, Declan," she said softly, turning to face him. "I will make it through this." "Promise me," he said, his voice thick with worry. "Promise me you will fight." "I promise," she said, and she meant it with all her heart. "I am not going anywhere. You are stuck with me for at least the next 50 years. He smiled. 50 years is not enough. He kissed her then, a kiss full of all the words he could not find. She kissed him right back, promising with her whole soul that they would be okay. One day in August, a wagon pulled up, kicking up dust. Declan came out of the barn to see a well-dressed woman climbing down. For a second, he did not know who she was. Then she took off her bonnet. Amelia came to the door and let out a gasp. "Aunt Margaret!" The woman, Margaret Cross, turned to Amelia, looking both relieved and worried. Amelia, thank the Lord. Your letter had me scared to death, so I came as fast as I could. What letter? Declan asked, looking at Amelia with confusion. Amelia's face went white. I wrote to her 2 months back. I just wanted her to know I was happy and doing well. Worry? Margaret Cross's voice cut sharp as a spur. Child, I have been beside myself with worry. Her voice cracked. When I realized what I'd done, what I'd said, I tried to find you, but you were gone. It took hiring a private investigator to track you all the way out here. You hired someone? Amelia's hand moved to protect her belly. Are you here to take me back? She asked, her voice trembling. No, the older woman's face just crumpled. No, dear girl, I am here to beg for your forgiveness for the awful things I said. I was wrong, Amelia. I was so wrong about everything. A heavy silence filled the air, full of old hurt. Declan finally stepped up, offering his hand. Ma'am, I'm Declan Ward. Amelia's husband. Why don't you come in, Ma, out of this, son? Margaret took his hand, sizing him up with that sharp look Amelia had. Thank you, Mr. Ward. I'd like that very much. Inside, with cool water and simple sandwiches, Margaret told her side of the story. She said she regretted her words right away, but was too proud to take them back. She said the investigator found Amelia through the marriage agency. He followed the stagecoach lines right to Birch Creek and then to the Ward Ranch. When I got your letter saying you'd married a rancher, Margaret admitted, I did not believe you were happy. I figured you were just being brave. So I came to see for myself, to rescue you if you needed it. She paused, looking around the cozy cabin, or to see that you truly were all right. I am well, Amelia said softly. Aunt Margaret, I am truly happy here. This life and this man, it is everything I ever needed, even when I did not know it. I can see that now. Margaret's gaze fell on Declan, sitting so close to Amelia. He had his hand covering hers on the table. Mr. Ward, I came here fully prepared to dislike you. I imagined some rough man who had taken advantage of my niece. Ma'am, with all due respect, I am a rough man, Declan said, his voice steady. But I love your niece. I love her strength and her good sense. I love the life we are building, and I promise you I will spend forever making sure she is happy. Margaret looked at him for a long moment, and then a real smile warmed her face. I believe you will, Mr. Ward, and I see now you are exactly what Amelia needed. Not some fella to lock her away, but one who saw the real her. I surely do, Declan said, plain and simple. Margaret's quick visit to check on things stretched out to 3 whole days. She stayed in town but spent her time out at the ranch. Declan just watched as the aunt and niece started to mend their fences. Now it was not easy. There were tears and some tough talks about old pains. But soon came the laughter and a real understanding between them. Margaret took a surprising shine to the ranch, even admitting she was a farm girl at heart. She walked through Amelia's garden, just admiring all the hard work. Your mama would be so proud, Margaret told her on the second day. She always said you had a gift for making things grow. I'd plumb forgot what really matters in this life, she said. What changed, Amelia asked. Why did you really come all this way? Margaret got quiet for a second. When you left, I figured you would come crawling back inside of a month, but you did not. Then I started having these awful dreams that you were in some kind of trouble. I realized I was doing to you just what had been done to me. I was trying to force you into a safe life instead of a happy one. I just could not bear the thought of that standing between us. You are not dying, Amelia said. We all go someday, dear. What matters is making peace with your family before you do. She turned right to her niece. I want to make peace with you, Amelia. I want to be part of y'all's life, and to know this baby you are carrying. I want to support the choices you have made. Amelia's eyes welled up. I want that too. I have missed you, Aunt Margaret. She cried and they just hugged each other tight. Declan slipped away quietly, his own throat feeling tight with feeling. He never got that chance with his own folks. Watching them felt like something sacred. That evening, pretty much the whole community came over for supper. The Reverend was there, Doc Henderson, even the Whitmores came out from town. That is when Margaret Cross made an announcement that flat out stunned everyone. I have decided to stay, she said to the crowded room. Not here, of course. Y'all need your privacy. But I spoke with Mr. Hutchkins, and there is a little house available in Birch Creek, and I am fixing to buy it and call Montana my home. Aunt Margaret, you cannot be serious, Amelia gasped. Amelia worried, but what about your whole life back in Boston? Honey, you and this baby are my life now, Margaret said. I am 62. I can live where I please, and I please to be right here with you. It is a lot less lonely here than in that big empty house, Margaret smiled. Besides, this old farm girl can still help out a little in a garden. Amelia glanced over at her husband, Declan, for his thoughts. He squeezed her hand. It is your call, love, but I think it is a fine idea. Especially with the little one on the way, Margaret quickly agreed. I want to be here to help when the baby arrives in September. And just like that, it was settled. Margaret was staying in Birch Creek. The whole arrangement just felt right, as if it was always meant to be. It was a surprise to them all, but a very welcome one. The end of August was a happy blur of getting everything ready. Doc Henderson arrived on time and made himself useful around the ranch. Margaret visited from town most days, helping Amelia get prepared. They made tiny clothes and she shared stories about Amelia's mother. Your own mother had you during a big thunderstorm, Margaret said one day. The midwife got stuck, so your father delivered you all by himself. Your mama said you came with the storm because you are a force of nature. Margaret smiled at her niece. And was she not right about that? You have crossed a country and built a life that would break most folks. I would say your mother knew you perfectly. September came with cooler weather, but Amelia's due date came and went with no sign of the baby. She got more and more frustrated with her own body's timing. Babies come when they are good and ready, Doc Henderson told her calmly. Well, that is easy for you to say, Amelia grumbled right back at him. You do not feel like you have swallowed a watermelon whole. Declan, trying his best not to hover, kept busy with little chores. He fixed hinges that were not broken and organized the already neat tack room. And he drove Margaret to distraction, always asking if Amelia was all right. She's doing just fine, Declan, Margaret insisted. First babies take their sweet time. Now stop fretting and go check on that fence. But Declan couldn't settle his mind. He had worked so hard to keep Amelia safe. He'd prepared for everything he could think of. But now he felt completely helpless. What if something went wrong? What if the doctor couldn't fix it? The thought of losing her was more than he could bear. Then, early on September 7th, the time came. Amelia shook him awake and said with a calm voice, "It is time. Go get Doc Henderson." Declan was already moving, running through the dark cabin in his long johns. He pounded on the storage room door, yelling, "Doc, it is time." The hours that followed felt like the longest of Declan's whole life. Doc Henderson kept saying everything was normal. He said Amelia was strong, but first labors just took a while. But hearing her cries from the bedroom was a special kind of misery for him. This is how it is, Margaret told him, holding his hand as he paced like a caged wolf. Amelia is a strong woman. She is going to be just fine. You cannot know that for sure, Declan said, his voice rough with worry. Things go wrong sometimes. They can, she agreed, but she has Doc Henderson, and she has me and Ben. Now sit down before you wear a hole in the floor. He couldn't sit. He just paced and worried and prayed to a God he wasn't sure he believed in anymore. He made desperate bargains in his head, promising anything just to keep her safe. Please let her live, he whispered. I cannot do this without her. The sun came up, painting the mountains in gold and pink, but the labor went on. Doc Henderson came out once to say things were moving all along, but slowly. He said Amelia was showing remarkable courage. Can I please see her? Declan begged. She made me promise not to let you see her like this, the doctor said kindly. She wants to be strong for you. So Declan had no choice but to wait and pace and fight off his worst fears. Reverend Mitchell showed up mid-morning and sat praying quietly in a corner. Mrs. Whitmore brought over a big pot of food that nobody touched. Even Billy Patterson rode out from town just to check in on her for the community. And all the while he could hear the sounds from behind that closed bedroom door. There was pain, yes, but also the calm sound of the doctor's voice, and once even Amelia's tired laughter. Then, in the early afternoon, everything changed. A sharp cry, louder than before, was followed by urgent voices. And then a deep silence fell that made Declan's blood run cold. As he rushed for the door, it swung open. Doc Henderson came out, his face all business. "Declan, this is a tough one," he said. "The baby's stuck. I have to go in, and there are risks. We could lose them both." "Do what you have to do," Declan said, his voice cracking. "Just save her. Please. Save Amelia. I don't care about anything else. Just save my wife." "I'll do everything in my power," the doctor promised, which had to be enough. "Margaret's in there with her. I need to get back." The door closed, leaving Declan alone with his fear. A terrible weight crushed his chest, making it hard to breathe. This was it. This was the moment he had dreaded, the moment he could lose everything. Reverend Mitchell came and put a hand on his shoulder. "Have faith, son. Amelia's a strong woman. We just have to trust in that strength and leave the rest in God's hands." "I don't know if I believe anymore, Reverend," Declan whispered. "That's all right. He believes in you and Amelia, and that sweet baby fighting to get here." The minutes felt like hours. Declan listened to every sound from behind the door. He heard Amelia scream, a sound so raw it nearly dropped him to his knees. Frantic voices followed, and his heart hammered against his ribs. Then a brand new sound, a baby's cry, small but strong and full of life. Declan's knees buckled. The Reverend caught him and helped him into a chair. It was the sweetest sound in the whole world. His child was alive. But Amelia, was she all right? The silence from his wife was deafening. He could only hear the baby crying. He was sick with worry. What if something had gone wrong after the birth? What if he was losing her right now while he just sat there, helpless? Finally, after what felt like a lifetime, the bedroom door opened. Margaret stood there. She looked bone-tired, but her face was shining with joy. "Declan, come meet your daughter." He was in the room in a heartbeat. It was dim and smelled of sweat and struggle, but none of that mattered. Amelia was in the bed, propped up with pillows. She was pale and exhausted, but her smile lit up the entire room. And in her arms, she held the tiniest person Declan had ever seen. "We have a daughter," Amelia said, her voice full of wonder. "Come see her." He walked to the bed on shaky legs and looked at the little baby in his wife's arms. She was so small, with a full head of dark hair that looked just like his, just trying to take it all in. "She's perfect," Declan whispered. "Amelia, she's just perfect." His voice cracked. "And you? Are you all right?" Doc Henderson said it was a tough go. "It was," Amelia agreed. "There were a few times I was scared, but Doc knew his business, and Aunt Margaret kept me going." "We did it, Declan. The three of us made it." He leaned down and kissed her, tasting the salty sweat on her skin. He was so full of love and relief that he started shaking. "I was so scared when he said there were problems. When I heard you yell, I know. I'm sorry you went through that." She touched his cheek. "But we're here now. We're safe. And we have this beautiful girl." As if she understood, the baby opened her eyes. They were newborn blue, but she seemed mighty curious. She looked from Amelia to Declan and made a little, happy sound. "What should we name her?" Declan asked, staring at his daughter's face. "Well," Amelia said softly, "I was thinking her middle name should be my mother's Catherine. For her first name, I'd like to name her after your mother. What was her name again?" "Sarah," Declan said, his throat tight. "Sarah Elizabeth Ward." "Sarah Catherine Ward," Amelia said, trying it out. "What do you think, little one?" The baby let out a huge yawn, and her parents laughed through their tears. Doc Henderson came back in to check on them both. He declared them healthy, considering the difficult birth. "You did real good, Amelia. This little one's got a strong set of lungs on her. I reckon you'll both be just fine." "Thank you," Amelia said with all her heart, "for everything, for being here. We owe you more than we can ever pay. Seeing this right here is payment enough," the doctor said with a smile. "Though I won't say no to that smoked ham you promised me, Declan. Now you get some rest. I'll stay close for a few days to make sure you're both coming along." In the days that followed, the Ward Ranch had a steady parade of visitors. Reverend Mitchell came by to bless the baby, and Mrs. Whitmore brought a handmade quilt. Even Billy Patterson showed up, bringing a little wooden rattle his granddaddy made. The same folks who'd been wary of Amelia now came to welcome her daughter with open arms. You're one of us now, Mrs. Whitmore told her plainly, watching Amelia with the baby. And it's not just because you married Declan, though that surely helped. It's because you've proved your salt. You made it through that winter and saved your husband's life. You worked this ranch and brought new life here. That's what makes you frontier folk. Margaret stayed on for the first week, helping with all the cooking and the chores, to teaching Amelia all the little things about baby care. The whole feeling between the aunt and niece had changed. It was a complete turnaround. The old troubles just burned off, replaced by something real and true. Your mama would be mighty proud, Margaret said one evening, watching Amelia soothe a fussy Sarah. Not just for being a good mother, which you are, but for the life you have built for yourself. I was wrong to try and push you. This ranch, this is your home. Amelia smiled. I am glad you can see that. And I am so glad you are here with us. Having family close by means the world to me. Family, Margaret said again, with a happy sigh. Yes, that is exactly what we are. September drifted into October, and the ranch found a new, gentle rhythm with the baby in the house. Little Sarah turned out to be an easy baby, sleeping well and eating with gusto. Declan and Amelia just looked at her every day, amazed at the miracle she was. Declan took on more of the chores around the house so Amelia could rest, and he found he did not mind one bit. Cooking, cleaning, none of it felt like work when it was for his wife and their new little girl. In the evenings, with all the work done, the three of them would just sit together peacefully. Sitting by the fire, Declan felt a contentment so deep it was almost unbelievable. I keep thinking I'm going to wake up and this will all be a dream, he admitted one night. He watched Sarah in the cradle he made, that I will be alone in this cabin again. Well, if it is a dream, we are in it together, Amelia said, leaning on his shoulder, although my dreams were never quite this good or this messy. Declan chuckled. Oh, I know. I have been on diaper duty, remember? You have been a natural at it. She kissed his cheek. You have been wonderful through it all, Declan. The best partner a woman could ask for. And since you doubted me at first, proving you wrong has been mighty satisfying. They sat in a comfortable silence for a spell, watching their little girl sleep. Finally, Declan spoke. I used to think I needed a simple, practical kind of woman. I thought all that beauty and grace meant weakness, someone who could not handle this hard life. And instead you got me, Amelia said with a little grin. Instead I got you, he replied softly, someone beautiful and refined, but stronger than anyone I have ever known. You saved my best horse on your first night. You saved my life in that blizzard, and you came through childbirth like a true warrior. He looked her right in the eyes. You needed someone who truly saw you, and I needed the very same thing. We found each other at just the right time, even if we were both too stubborn to see it at first. So you are saying we are just two stubborn fools who got lucky? She teased. Exactly, he said, and gave her a long, slow kiss, of her body, drawn to her presence. They were the luckiest two souls in all of Montana. Winter rolled in again, as it always does, but the Ward Ranch was a different place this time. The cabin that once held a lonely man now held a family, a husband, wife, and daughter, all bound by love. Margaret visited from town pretty regular, bringing news, supplies, and her own brand of love for the family she'd chosen. Hope, the filly, grew into a beautiful yearling, showing all the promise they first saw in her. The garden was sleeping under the snow, but the root cellar was plumb full from the summer. The cattle were fat and happy, the horses were strong, and the whole ranch just glowed with their hard work. You could tell two people who loved the land and each other were taking care of it. One cold December evening, almost a year to the day after the blizzard, Declan and Amelia sat by the fire with little Sarah between them. The baby was 3 months old now, curious as a kitten, watching the fire and waving her tiny fist at the flames. Do you remember this time last year? Amelia asked, resting her hand on Sarah's chest. When we were snowed in for 3 days, I remember thinking I was a fool to chase that horse into the storm. And I remember thinking I couldn't lose you before I got the chance to tell you I loved you. She smiled at him. Look at us now. Look at us now, he echoed, his voice full of awe. A year ago, I was terrified of losing you. Now I can't picture my life without you. You and Sarah are my everything. Y'all are the reason I come in from the one and why all this hard work matters. Love did that, Amelia said softly. It took two lonely folks and gave them a second chance. Gave us a second chance. And Declan knew she was right. Love hadn't made him weaker like he'd always feared. It had done the exact opposite. It gave him a strength he never even knew he had. It gave him the courage to face old fears and a reason to believe in building something that would last. I thought I needed someone, plain and simple, he said, smiling this time. Someone who wouldn't expect too much. I reckon that was the safer bet. Less likely to end in the kind of hurt I'd known before, but instead, I got you. Someone special who expected everything and gave it all right back. You showed me that opening your heart isn't weakness. It's the bravest thing a person can do. He gently touched Sarah's soft head. You gave me a family when I thought I'd never have one again. Amelia's eyes were shining with tears. You know my only regret? He asked, that we waited so long? No, she smiled, that I only have one lifetime to spend loving you and watching our daughter grow up. It just doesn't feel like enough time. Then we'll make every day count, Declan said, pulling them both close. We'll fill this one lifetime with enough love and laughter to be worth 10. A lifetime, that'll be enough. A gentle snow was falling, not the mean blizzard of a year before. Just a soft snow promising a pretty morning. Inside the warm cabin, the fire was glowing and the baby was happy. Two folks brought together by fate held tight to the new family they were making. And the Ward Ranch, well, it surely did grow over the years. They had more children, two strong sons and another daughter. The horse business took off, with Hope's bloodline known all over as the very best. And Amelia's garden, it grew just as she'd dreamed. It fed them and all their neighbors too. Margaret lived long enough to see all the kids born, becoming a town treasure. She was loved by her family and the whole community. But it all started in those first hard months when a lonely rancher and a desperate bride chose to be brave. They decided to see each other for who they were, not who they expected. They chose love and built something real from the ashes of their pasts. Years later, when folks asked Amelia about her marriage, about marrying a stranger out on that ranch, she'd just smile and say, he needed someone who truly saw him, and I needed someone to see me. We found each other right on time, even if we didn't know it then. And when they asked Declan how he got so lucky with a wife like her, he would look at Amelia with that same wonder in his eyes and he'd say, I figured I needed a simple woman. Instead, I got someone special, and she still chose me. That's not luck, that's a pure blessing. But the real truth, the one they both knew in their hearts, was simpler. They'd both been broken by loss and loneliness. Both figured they just had to settle for less. And then, by some mix of chance and fate, they found each other. They had found one another and chose to be brave and build something true. That choice made every single day to love and trust each other changed everything. It turned a patch of dirt into a real home. It turned surviving into truly living. As Declan looked out over his land that cold morning, with his family safe inside, he finally understood. He finally understood what his folks had always tried to show him. Love doesn't make a man weak. It doesn't make this life harder. Love is what makes it possible in the first place. Love is what makes it all worthwhile. And every day, Declan Ward would wake up thankful he had been brave enough to love that stranger who changed his world. Thankful that Amelia had been brave enough to stay and fight for the life they built together. They chose love, even when it scared them half to death. They were both running from lonely lives that had become too hard to bear. But what they found, bless their hearts, was each other. And in doing that, they finally found their way home. Home was not a building or a piece of land. It was the safe place two people make when they decide to face this world side by side. It is about truly seeing a person for who they are and choosing to love them with courage every single day. That right there was home. That was everything a person could ever need. As he stood in that Montana dawn, Declan Ward felt a certainty deep in his soul. He was exactly where he belonged. He was with the one woman meant for him, living the good life he was always supposed to live. This life was a far cry from what he imagined when he placed that ad. It was so much better because it was real. It was messy and full of hard work, for sure, but it was absolutely wonderfully perfect.